So, I remember the place, and I remember the time. I was on my way to San Francisco, driving up the A3, the M25, and I called my dad. And we had a conversation, a nice conversation, as always. And at the end of the conversation, he said, "Have a good time. I hope it goes okay. I hope business is good. I love you." I love you. And it wasn't the fact that well, put it this way, he hadn't told me he loved me for 30 years. So it took him 30 years to tell me that he loved me. And it wasn't the fact that I was yearning for the word, because I knew that he loved me. I knew that. We had a great relationship. He gave me so many opportunities. It was how it made me feel. It made me feel like a child. In a good way. It made me feel like a child. It made me feel secure. It made me feel confident. It made me feel invincible, just for that moment. Invincible. And what I realized is that we're actually all children, aren't we? I think we are. I think we all have parents somewhere, don't we? I think we were all born, unless there's this thing called a stalk, which is actually real, and I don't think it is. So we're all children, and that is exactly how all children should feel. That's how all people should feel, even in adulthood, because we're all children. This is Freya. She's 6. And this is Jacob. He's 8. And I didn't tell them to do that with a magnifying glass, by the way. These are my children. I am their daddy. And it's my responsibility to make sure that they are continuing to be children. They are wonderful little people, two beautiful little minds, two funny little smiles, such zest for life. And that is my job as a dad to keep it within them. So if we go back to the words that I said about how my dad made me feel, and then how I ensure this environment for them is a nurtured environment all the way through their life, it's my job as an adult, as a parent, to do that. Safe, secure, confident, loved, happy. A phenomenal environment for phenomenal creativity. But the problem is we go to education and all of a sudden we become a bit shit. We go into this world of education and we become this thing called adults, which in my opinion are a bit shit. The education system itself is fundamentally broken. Take this stat. George Land was famous and is famous. Back in 1968, he created a test for NASA for engineers and scientists to identify the imagination and creativity within these engineers and scientists going into NASA. And then he applied the same test, because he was curious, to children. Ages of 4 to 5-year-olds deemed to be, 98% of those people were deemed to be creative at the age of 4 to 5. So he was interested. He thought, well, how did it go ahead? How did it continue as they go through this shit thing called education? The age of 10, 15, and then when we become adults, we're only 2% creative. And yet our world of tomorrow is not the world of Victorian industrial era. The world of tomorrow needs creativity to survive. And what he said is, we have concluded that non-creative behavior is actually a learned behavior. We're born with creativity, we lose it as we go forward. And what's even worse is this morning, just on TV, I was in my hotel room and I saw it, and they're talking about bringing harder exams and more exams to 7-year-olds. So what? Harder exams make them really scared. It's wrong. If you take the lecture hall itself is just like this. How many people want to ask a question right now in front of everyone? None. One very cheeky person at the back. The point is that you don't. And education is about asking beautiful questions, being curious all the time. And the reason for lecture halls is that for the industrial times in the Victorian era, we only ever had one book. So I could read you out my book because I could afford a book. Resources were scarce, but I think we have something called Google now, don't we? I think. We don't need this system anymore. So that's wrong. And then the grading system itself is fundamentally wrong. I'm thick. I was never an A. I was a lie. I was an A. I was an A in quants. Get that. I don't know how. Quants. Wow. And basically, I was always either a B or a C, and then I was never an A or a B, or sometimes it wasn't even a D. And I was always chipped away at my confidence at every single stage, because that's what exams do to our people, to these creative minds which we need in our businesses. Then we have curriculum, brought to us by the Department of Education. Thank you very much. Something which hasn't changed for years, decades, in fact, centuries sometimes, I'd say. It's not adaptable. It doesn't harness the creative mind. In fact, it rejects most of those creative minds. And hence why our divergent memory and our convergent mindset are always a battle. And the convergent, the one which is the scrutinizer, always wins over the divergent mind, the imagination. So that's wrong too. So if we go back to the perfect mindset, which is no inhibition within the world of creativity, the ability to move forward, to say things, to ideate, to create. Go back and look at children. They don't have inhibitions. If they were asked to swim with a shark, they probably would. They'd go swimming. "Oh, Daddy, I'm going for a swim." Because he doesn't know it's dangerous. Children don't have inhibitions. And here's a good example. Jacob dancing. He doesn't give a shit. He just dances and dances and laughs around. He literally spins. He loves it. He doesn't think that I'm judging him because I provide him that secure, beautiful environment for his mindset and his body to just dance and express himself. Think about how you dance these days, all of you. Most of you be like, "Oh, just go, yeah, just dancing. No one's looking at me. No one's looking at me, I'm sure." It's a problem. Because his inhibitions stop us from being creative. Because we are worried about being strange, but it's okay to be a bit weird. This is Freya in the bath, wearing her goggles. She doesn't put her face in the water. She doesn't like it on her face. And I asked her this question. What do you think you look like wearing your goggles?
Weird.
And is it okay to look weird?
Yes.
It is okay to be weird. And isn't it funny that the weird people are the ones that we aspire to be in many ways? It's the weird people at the top of the organizations, and some of the best people I've met at the top of these organizations are a bit strange. They keep their weirdness. Weirdness is just focus in many ways. Focused on your thing. What we've got to do in our organizations to be able to be the most creative we can possibly be is to remove the stress, because stress is about uncertainty. And do you know what? Uncertainty is the worst thing for the brain. The imagination and the growth of the brain. Take this example and this experiment on rats. A test went like this. A set of rats were put into a beautiful, nurtured environment, a creative environment with wheels and food, and other rats, a community, an active environment. Another rat was put into a cage on its own, fed basic food, basic water. And this is the growth of their neurons. Their brain grows in such a beautiful way. Their neurons grow in such a beautiful way. And lucky for me, science says it's not about how many brain cells you have, because I had a great time at university. It's about how each thing grows and just continues to grow into each other. That is what imagination is all about. That is intelligence. And the rats, the neuron on the left is of the environment, which was a impoverished environment. The one on the right is how the rat's brain grows in that environment itself. And the weird thing is that as they play, and as we as children and as adults play, we learn to take risk. And by incremental risk-taking, we continue to progress. That is innovation. And the weird thing is, it's been staring at us right in our face. The word recreation, something you do outside of work, should be in work. Because the word creation, creativity. Recreation is standing there, but how many times have we said, stop messing about, get back to work? It's bullshit, because that is the way the mind works. Imagination should be hired for, the skill isn't as important. At AKQA, we hire our engineers with a test at the end. And the test is simply a box of little bits, snappable, magnetic snappable electric circuits and components. And it says on the box, are you the future? Create it. That's it. And when they come in with their thing that they've created and the applications and websites that they've put around there, not only can we look at the code, the skill, but we can see their imagination about how they really think, because they're the people that we need in our organizations for tomorrow. And isn't it amazing how intelligent those thick people are? Those thick people at school. They're the ones who are the intelligent ones for tomorrow. They're the minds that we need to harness. But it's okay, I've got my MBA. Really important. I've got an MBA. What's it fucking mean? Oh, sorry. Sorry, as a child at the front, I said I might swear. I've got a friend who went to school with me, a really dear friend. And he's pretty thick. He was in special needs. And so I asked him to go on camera, and I asked him one question, which was, what is intelligence to you? And he's done pretty well.
Hello, lovely people. Jamie Oliver here. Hope you're well. I'm just doing filming at the moment, having a little bit of lunch. And I've been asked to say a few words for the lovely Ben Jones that's in the house. Yee-hoo! We went to school together. He's a good old friend of mine. Very clever boy. And he's asked me to talk about intelligence, which is a funny old thing, isn't it, intelligence? When I went to school, I was in all the worst groups and classes, went to special needs all of my childhood. But I do think that what intelligence is very subjective. What is intelligence and what is intelligent? So, intelligence is a big question. And I think it comes in different forms. And I think it needs to be a mixture of skin on skin and tactile and human and grounded and kind of bendy and agile and be able to react. At the same time, it needs to be intelligent traditionally, like clever, ninja, detailed, thorough. So the world of bringing those two together. How many incredibly intelligent people do you know that don't get to achieve the goals that they could have? How many super intelligent people do you know that can't convey the stuff? And how many traditionally unintelligent people do you know that can make people feel emotional or want to go do something because it feels right? So we've got to bring those things together, man. That's what it's all about. The question is, how? How? I don't know. But I think the answer is going to start coming very soon. And maybe Ben's got the answer. And if he has got the answer, I'd like to know it, because he's my friend and he should give me the first refusal. That's the challenge. Now I'm going to go back to my lunch. So stop interrupting my lunch. But Ben, over to you. Have a brilliant, brilliant conference. I hope it's fruitful and intelligent. At the end of the day, there's a wonderful, intelligent thing to do, which is called tequila. It's so good. And on ice, I love it. Really good quality tequila. Over to you, Ben.
The problem is, he's probably right. But isn't it amazing how he thinks? It's all bendy in his head. He can see things in different ways that we don't see. Or some of us do. He thinks that way. And he also talks about drinking. And when you look at daydreaming and drinking, they're very similar. When you put someone to a functional MRI scan and look at their brains where they're daydreaming, two parts of the brain start to connect that they don't normally connect in real logical thought, in our normal day. But how many times are you told, stop daydreaming, Jones, get back to work? Again, it's wrong. And drinking is the same. Giving someone a little bit of drink, not as much as you're going to drink tonight when you go out on the night summit, because you've got to remember the idea the next day. But it's amazing how, again, the brain starts to activate different areas when you're drinking, and you can actually solve 3 times as many problems quicker than you can when you're not drinking a small amount. Parenting is about self-belief, projecting self-belief on your children and the people and the colleagues within your organizations. A study done on kids for Where's Wally? Where is Wally? Do you see Wally? If told, one set of kids were told, you can find Wally, you will find Wally, and the other kids were told, you won't find Wally, it's impossible to find Wally, you never find Wally. The other kids will find it 7 times quicker because they believe in themselves. There's Wally. And then you take that to the Israeli army, a little bit more serious in adulthood, and you take a group of, a study done on the Israeli army, where a group of recruits basically given one instructor and then another instructor, and this instructor is told, these are the best, the best, the best, the best, and yet they weren't, they're the worst. This instructor is told, these are the worst, the worst, the worst, and yet they're the best. And because of the belief and the perception of this instructor on his people, these guys way outperformed at the end of the training than the best of the best of the best. Because he believed. It's about harnessing passion, not harnessing skill and so forth, harnessing their passion. The lady called Nina Ignatius, she created Bayer Bamboo, a beautiful product for children and babies out of her pure passion of adversity of her son born very, very prematurely. And she saw all the wires and so forth going into the baby, and she had to change the baby in this circumstance, all these wires being pulled out and so forth. So she created Bayer Bamboo, which is basically a baby grow which opens up at every area with no seams and labels on the outside. It's the attention to detail which actually makes a difference in tomorrow. And she created Bayer Bamboo, and she's one of the 40 women over 40 to watch as defined by Forbes. A beautiful product. So a couple of questions at the end. Have you mastered the dichotomy of parenting, this beautiful balance between structure in the organizations and freedom? Do you encourage the people, your people who work for you, or the people around you? Or do you scrutinize? Do you hinder their adventures? I bet you do, because that's what adults do. So be a child and put that love at the center of their greatness, your greatness, because that's the bit which allows you to go all the way. And to go all the way is about tenacity at the end of the day. Tenacious dreaming to go all the way.
If you're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. If you're going to try, go all the way. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, jobs, and maybe your mind. It could mean derision, mockery, isolation. Isolation is the gift. All the others are a test of your endurance, of how much you really want to do it. And you'll do it, despite rejection and the worst odds. If you're going to try, go all the way. There is no other feeling like that. Do it, do it, do it. All the way.
Thank you very much.